Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Niti Rathor from chempandit.com. Let's discuss something very interesting today. Some facts about things found around us, especially in our kitchens. Yes, that is very interesting to note. Do you know where does this vinegar gets its properties from? Of course, we all use vinegar in kitchen for cooking purposes. Where does this baking soda and baking powder get their properties from? Of course, we use them to make breads and cakes fluffy and soft. From where does these washing and cleaning agents that we use at home, from where does they get their properties from? What are the reason behind their properties? Apart from this, there are many other important components, important substances that we use at home or we use in industries for various purposes. Yes, the things behind this are acids, bases and salts. So let's discuss this chapter from class 10th. So let's begin with theories of acids and bases. People have been trying to define acids from years and years. Initially, the first attempt was made by the Greeks who said anything that is sour in taste is an acid. Then in the 1700s came Lavoisier and he said compounds whose structure contains oxygen is an acid. And then years and years later came the first universally accepted and the most correct theory, Arrhenius theory, which said any substance when dissolved in water, if dissociates to give H ions, it will be known as an acid. So, any compound that dissociates in H ions when dissolved in water is known as Arrhenius acid. And examples we can take HCl, H2SO4, HNO3, etc. Then let's define bases. So he said when dissolved in water, bases dissociate to give OH ions. So this means any compound if gives OH ions when dissolved in water, then it is a base. An example is sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. After that came another universally accepted theory known as Bronsted and Lowry theory. So as per Bronsted and Lowry, acids are hydrogen ion donors and bases are hydrogen ion acceptors. So anything that donates hydrogen ion is an acid and any substance, any compound which is an hydrogen ion acceptor is a base. So looking into this example, since HCl is donating H ion to NH3, therefore HCl is a Bronsted acid and ammonia which is accepting this H ion is a Bronsted base. On the basis of properties, we can say acids are any substance that is sour in taste and which turns blue litmus paper to red is an acid. In this figure you can see there is a blue litmus paper dipped in a solution of acid and the litmus paper turns red in color, proving that the solution is an acid. Apart from this, when dissolved in water, acids release H ions. Also, acids are corrosive in nature. Example, we know the most common and the most simple example is lemon. Lemon is sour due to citric acid. As we have already discussed that acids are sour in taste. So lemon, orange, curd, all these are sour in taste because of presence of citric acid. Fruits and curds, other fruits also that are sour are because of presence of acids. Let's see how we can categorize acids. Acids can basically be categorized on different bases. For example, on the basis of origin, acids can be of two types, organic acids and mineral acids. Now, organic acids get their name from their origin and their origin is plant or animal origin. Basically, they are naturally found in different fruits and vegetables. For example, citric acid is found in lemon, tomatoes, oranges. Apart from this, lactic acid is found in milk and curd. Tartaric acid is found in tamarind. The second type is mineral acids. Mineral acids are of mineral origin. That means they are synthesized from mineral resources. For example, sulfuric acids, hydrochloric acids, nitric acid, etc. On the basis of concentration, acids can be categorized into two types, dilute and concentrated. Any solution can be known as dilute. It can be called as dilute when less quantity of salt or solute is dissolved in larger quantity of its solvent. In this case, when less amount of acid is dissolved in larger quantity of water, which means when concentration of acid is lesser in its aqueous solution, it will be known as a dilute acid. On the contrary, when concentration of acid is more in its aqueous solution, that means when more quantity of acid is dissolved in water, it will be known as concentrated acid. Concentrated acids are quite dangerous because they actually have fumes, and if they are spilled on our body parts accidentally, they may cause severe burns. So always be careful while using concentrated acids. On the basis of strength, acids can be categorized into two types, strong acids and weak acids. Strong acids are those which completely dissociate into its ions in its aqueous solution. For example, HCl and H2SO4, and the reaction can be written like this. HCl molecule dissociates to give H ion and chloride ion. Weak acids, on the contrary, are those which do not completely dissociate into its ions in aqueous solutions. The example we can take is acetic acid. It is a weak acid and therefore it does not completely dissociate into its ions. And that is why this arrow we have written over here, which means that the molecules dissociate into its ions, and some of the ions they again join back, and again it forms acetic acid molecules. So, and some of the molecules they are unable to dissociate also. So, the final solution will contain acetic acid molecules plus the dissociated ions. Let's quickly take a look on the common acids that are found in our day-to-day lives. The first and the most common being acetic acid. This is found in vinegar. Actually, vinegar is a very dilute form of acetic acid which is used in cooking Chinese food, etc. It is basically added to food for increasing the sourness. Second common acid is citrus acid, which is found in citrus fruits like lemon, orange, tomatoes. Then next is lactic acid, which is found in dairy products like milk, curd, etc. Next is ascorbic acid. This is known as vitamin C. It is again found in fresh cut citrus fruits, tomatoes, lemon and oranges, and in some vegetables also like cauliflower and cabbage. Next is carbonic acid, which is found in soft drinks and soda water. Now, where does this carbonic acid comes from in soft drinks? Actually, when these bottles of cold drinks they are closed, they are actually closed. While closing, carbon dioxide gas is pressurized into the bottles. So that is why when you open a bottle, the fizz sound comes out and this carbon dioxide gas comes out. So this sound is of that, and the tartness that soft drink contains, it is because of carbonic acid. The point is, carbonic acid is not harmful for health, but sometimes to increase this tartness or tanginess, some phosphoric acid is also added in soft drinks, which makes it harmful for health, and that is why it is said that too much soft drinks should not be consumed. Next is sulfuric acid, which is found in car batteries and in some drain cleaners. So whenever there is blockage in water pipes, in drainage pipes, then the drain cleaner that is added, it actually contains acid, sulfuric acid. Then the last one is nitric acid, which is used in or which is found in fertilizers and explosive. Apart from these acids, there are many other acids, numerous acids used in everyday life and used in industries for manufacturing purposes. So now, what are bases? Bases are quite different in their properties and reactions from acids. Acids were sour in taste, but bases are bitter in taste and they are soapy to touch. They also turn red litmus paper to blue. As you can see in this figure, a red litmus paper is dipped in a solution and it is turning in blue color. So therefore this is a base. Also, bases when dissolved in water produce OH ions. Let's just discuss some very common bases. For example, baking soda. You all know about baking soda. It is used in cooking for making breads and cakes fluffy and spongy. Then second is borax. Borax is chemically sodium tetraborate and it is used as a disinfectant and as a bleaching agent. Next is magnesium hydroxide. Again, this is a very common base found at homes in antacids. Antacids means eno, gelusil, which are used to cure acidity. Then another is sodium carbonate, which is used in dish detergents. It is found in dish detergents. And another one is sodium hypochlorite, which is again used as a bleaching agent. Bases can also be categorized into different types. On the basis of concentration, bases can be dilute or concentrated. As we have already discussed, we actually already know about this concept of dilute and concentrated. So low concentration of a base in aqueous solutions will be a dilute base. Means a solution in which the quantity of base is less in water. And in concentrated base, the quantity of base which is dissolved in water is more. So this is a concentrated base. So any base can be made into a dilute or a concentrated one. All depends on the amount of base that is being dissolved in water for preparing its solution. On the basis of strength, these can be of two types, strong base and weak base. Strong bases are those which completely dissociate into their ions when dissolved in water, which means in aqueous solution. Examples are sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide when dissolved in water dissociates completely into its ions sodium and hydroxide. When it comes to weak bases, these do not dissociate completely into its ions in aqueous solution. Best example would be ammonium hydroxide. Since ammonium hydroxide when dissolved in water dissociates to give ammonium and hydroxide ions, but some of the molecules they are unable to dissociate, and also some of the ions, dissociated ions, they combine back to form the molecule, and that is why this arrow is used, and that is why these are known as weak bases. Now, have you ever thought that acids and bases, which are very different in their properties and reactions, when they react together, what actually happens? It is very interesting to note that when an acid reacts with a base, a salt and water is formed, and this is a very popular reaction known as neutralization reaction. Why is this reaction known as neutralization? Because acids and bases when react together, they actually nullify their effect. They actually become neutral. Now the salt formed is neither acidic nor basic. So let's take this example of sodium hydroxide reacting with hydrochloric acid to give the corresponding salt, sodium chloride and water. What actually happens here is the H ion from the acid and OH ion from the base, they combine to form water molecule, and other cation and anion, they combine to form the corresponding salt. Similarly, let's take one more example. In this example, H ion of sulfuric acid and OH ion of potassium hydroxide, they combine to give water molecule, and sulfate and potassium, they react to give potassium sulfate. So this is how a neutralization reaction actually takes place. Now suppose you have been given 2-3 solutions and you have been asked to find out which one is an acid and which one is a base. So what are you going to do? Definitely you will add something, some chemical, or you will use some other substance to find out which one is an acid or a base. So all those compounds that are used to indicate whether a solution is an acid or a base are known as acid-base indicators. So they basically indicate by some changes, by showing some change, some color change or something, that the particular solution is an acid or a base. So let's first start with natural indicators. So in the indicators that are synthesized from natural resources, from natural sources, they are known as natural indicators. The first and the more oldest example is litmus paper. Now this litmus is extracted from lichens, and that is why it is a natural indicator. Now this litmus is available in as an aqueous solution also, and it is also available in a form of paper strips. So the property is, litmus paper when dipped in acid, the blue one, it turns red and it has no reaction with the base. And when red litmus paper is dipped in base, it turns blue and it has no change in color with an acid. And when it comes to aqueous solution of litmus, then with acid it gives red color and with base it gives blue color. So this means when you add a 1 drop of litmus solution to acid solution, it becomes red in color, and when it is added to a basic solution, it turns blue in color. One more very interesting natural indicator is turmeric. Turmeric is used as an indicator in the form of strips. Paper strips are made of turmeric and they are dried and then they are used as an indicator. So when we add 1 or 2 drops of base to a turmeric strip, it turns red in color, and with acidic solution there is no change in the color, there is no reaction basically. One more natural indicator is there, which is red cabbage leaves. We all know cabbage is normally green in color, that we eat as a vegetable. But red cabbage is also available in markets. This red cabbage leaves can be used as a natural indicator because it gives red color for an acid, it gives green color for a base and blue for a neutral solution. Apart from this, petals of many flowers, they can also be used as natural indicators. Example, hydrangea, China rose and geranium. Now amongst these, China rose is the most common flower, also known as hibiscus or gudhal in Hindi. When we prepare a solution of China rose in water, then it can be used as an indicator. It gives dark pink color with acid, green color with base, and it gives no color change with the neutral solution. So on this basis, what we have just discussed, we can just quickly discuss a simple concept based question, and the question is, what happens to a stain of curry on a white cloth when soap is rubbed on it? So now we know that soaps are basic in nature and curry contains turmeric powder. So, since we know when turmeric powder reacts with a base or it is added to a base, it gives reddish brown color. So, this is what happens. This whole scar will turn reddish brown in color, indicating that soap is basic in nature. And as soon as this stain is washed with plenty of water, it will again get back to its normal color. So these kind of questions are asked in exams many times. After discussing natural indicators, let's discuss some chemical indicators. These are basically chemicals which are synthesized from artificial sources, and the most common one is phenolphthalein. Phenolphthalein indicator, when added to an acid solution, it is basically colorless. It doesn't give any color. And with base, phenolphthalein gives pink color. Second most common is methyl orange, which is when added to an acid gives pink or dark pink color, and with base it gives yellow color. Apart from these, there is one more interesting category known as olfactory indicators, which basically indicate whether a solution is acidic or basic by odor changes. How? See, onion, vanilla and clove oil. We all know these things have very characteristic smell. So what happens is, when onion, which is having a characteristic smell, when cloth strip treated with onion is dipped in a basic solution, actually the smell of onion, it actually is destroyed. That means it cannot be detected now. But when it is dipped in acid solution, it does not have any effect. That means the smell is still there. Similarly is the case with vanilla essence and clove oil. These also have a typical smell, and in basic solution this smell cannot be detected, which means the smell is destroyed completely, and with acids they have no effect at all. So again, a very simple concept based question arises here, and the question is, what happens when few drops of dilute HCl solution and few drops of sodium hydroxide solution are added to two cloth strips treated with onion smell. So as we already know that onion has a characteristic smell which disappears in the presence of a base, which means the smell is destroyed, and with acid it has no effect. Now, after discussing so many physical properties, let's discuss some chemical properties of metals. And the first one is reaction of metals with acids. It is very interesting to note that acids, when react with metal, they actually produce the corresponding salt and release hydrogen gas. What happens actually is, this metal displaces hydrogen from the acid, being more reactive, and produces hydrogen gas and forms a salt. Let's do an activity to prove this particular property, and for this we need to take 5 ml of dilute sulfuric acid in a test tube, and let's add a few pieces of zinc granules to it. What is your observation? You will observe hydrogen gas bubbles. Actually, you will see some bubbles on the surface of zinc granules. Now these bubbles that you see, these are of hydrogen gas. This can be proved by passing this gas through a soap solution taken in this particular glass dish. You can see the whole apparatus. Now these bubbles we observe in the soap solution. These are the bubbles that we observe. And now what will we do? We will bring a candle near the gas filled bubble, and we will observe that the gas burns with a pop-up sound, and this proves that this is hydrogen gas. So this is the entire setup, and by this reaction, by this experiment, we can prove that metal, when reacts with acid, releases hydrogen gas, and the other component that is formed is the salt. Now a question arises, what will happen if instead of sulfuric acid we take HCl, HNO3 or acetic acid? Will you observe the same thing? Will the same reaction take place? The answer is yes. Even if you replace sulfuric acid with other acids like HCl, HNO3 or acetic acid, you will see the same observation. The same reaction will take place and hydrogen gas will get evolved. Now let's see how do metal carbonates react with acids. All metal carbonates or hydrogen carbonates, they react with acids and produce corresponding salt, carbon dioxide and water. And this is the general reaction that we can write. Again we will do an activity to prove this particular reaction. So for this we will take two test tubes A and B. Take 0.5 gram of sodium carbonate in one test tube and 0.5 gram of sodium hydrogen carbonate, also known as sodium bicarbonate, in test tube B. Now let's add 2 ml of dilute HCl to both the test tubes. What do you observe? You will observe that sodium carbonate on reaction with dilute HCl, it forms sodium chloride, water and carbon dioxide. And this is the reaction. Sodium carbonate when reacts with 2HCl gives sodium chloride, water and carbon dioxide gas is liberated. Similarly with sodium hydrogen carbonate, sodium chloride is formed and carbon dioxide is liberated. So you can see that this is another example of neutralization reaction. Here also neutralization is taking place because HCl is an acid and sodium carbonate is a basic salt. So here neutralization is taking place and a salt is being formed. We can again prove that this gas produced is carbon dioxide or not. How? By passing this gas through lime water. Because we know this property of carbon dioxide gas, when it is passed through a lime water solution, the solution turns milky with formation of a white precipitate. And this is what exactly happens here. When we pass this gas which is produced just now through lime water, the lime water turns milky with formation of white precipitate. This precipitate is of the compound calcium carbonate. Now what happens when excess carbon dioxide is passed through calcium carbonate? On passing excess carbon dioxide, this white precipitate of calcium carbonate disappears because it becomes soluble and it forms calcium bicarbonate. And this is the reaction. Calcium carbonate formed in the previous step is dissolved and it forms a salt known as calcium bicarbonate, which is completely soluble and it remains in the solution. We can take a case study in this case, and the case study is deterioration of Taj Mahal. How? Taj Mahal is made of marble, we all know, and marble is chemically limestone or calcium carbonate. So whenever acid rain falls on it, what happens? Since acid rain contains sulfuric acid, sulfurous acid, nitric acid, nitrous acid, therefore when these react with calcium carbonate of marble, they actually produce calcium sulfate and calcium nitrate, the corresponding salts. And this results in the deterioration of the marble. And this is the reason why Taj Mahal has turned yellow or brown in color. And the reaction can be written like this. Calcium carbonate plus H2SO4 gives calcium sulfate and carbon dioxide gas is evolved. Again, reaction with HNO3 can be seen, calcium nitrate salt is formed and carbon dioxide gas is released. And just now we have discussed this reaction in the previous slide. So now you know why Taj Mahal has deteriorated, why it has that beautiful monument, why it has become brownish yellow in color. We already know what is a neutralization reaction. We know that an acid reacts with a base to produce salt and water in this reaction. Let us quickly do an activity to basically show this reaction. For this, we will take 2 ml of dilute sodium hydroxide in a test tube and we will add 2 drops of phenolphthalein solution to it. The observation is you will get a pink color. Why? Because sodium hydroxide is a base and we know phenolphthalein indicator gives pink color with bases, right? Now in next step what we will do, we will add HCl solution, dilute HCl solution drop by drop to the above solution with constant stirring. So now what will we observe? We will observe that the color, pink color, slowly fades away and after some time it becomes colorless. Why? Now this is very important thing to be kept in mind, that initially when you start adding HCl, the HCl is consumed in neutralizing sodium hydroxide. It is basically neutralizing its effect and that is why the color is changing slowly. When total acid is used up in neutralizing sodium hydroxide, then the excess acid which is left in the solution, it gives colorless condition. Why? Because phenolphthalein is colorless to acids, right? Now to test this we can do one more thing. After it is become colorless, again we will add 1 or 2 drops of sodium hydroxide. The moment it becomes basic again, it will again give pink color. So this thing is very important to note, that the solution will not become colorless as soon as you add HCl, but it will only fade away, it will only become colorless after some time, means after the HCl is consumed in neutralization, after that the excess acid will become colorless, right? Again a small concept based question can be asked on this topic, and the question is, a student dropped few pieces of marble, which means calcium carbonate, in dilute HCl contained in a test tube. The evolved gas was passed through lime water. Now the first question is, what change would you observe in lime water? Of course, we know this whole concept, the lime water turns milky. We need not discuss this again and again. Right, the second question is, write balanced chemical equation for the above change. And the reaction can be written like this: lime water plus carbon dioxide gives calcium carbonate plus water. So these type of concept based simple questions are asked in exams, and so they are very important, and especially from the board point of view. Let's discuss one more activity. In this activity we will take small amount of copper oxide in a beaker and we will add dilute HCl slowly with stirring. What is the color of the solution now, and what happens to copper oxide? We will observe the color of the solution changes to blue-green color and copper oxide completely dissolves. Now this blue color of the solution can be attributed to the formation of copper 2 chloride in the reaction. And on this basis we can write the reaction between a metal oxide and an acid. So this activity was done basically to show the reaction of metal oxide with an acid, that in this reaction salt and water is formed. This is the general reaction. And now we can write the reaction copper oxide with HCl produces the corresponding salt copper chloride and water. So again this is also a type of neutralization reaction. Let's discuss one more concept based question. This question is based on whatever we have discussed earlier in the slides. And the question is, why should curd and sour substances not be kept in brass and copper vessels? Now we know that curd and other sour substances, they are sour because they contain acids. Therefore, when they are kept in brass and copper vessels, what should happen? This metal will react with the acid and liberate hydrogen gas and produce harmful products, thereby spoiling the food. And this food should not be consumed then. Earlier, brass and copper vessels were used for cooking purposes, but later because of this, they were replaced by utensils. Actually, the same utensils were actually coated with a white coating of tin. But nowadays, we use only stainless steel utensils for cooking because stainless steel has no reaction on any of the things and they are best for cooking purposes. Now one more question arises here. Why are these sour substances, means lemon or tamarind juice, why they are effective in cleaning copper vessels? And the answer is, lemon and tamarind juice, they are acidic in nature and they react with the oxidized copper. The copper utensil, you must have observed, it develops a blackish coating and because of that it loses its shine. So to remove this oxidized copper, this particular utensil is cleaned with tamarind or lemon juice to dissolve this oxidized copper and form salt and water, and thus the vessel is cleaned. You must have observed your mother cleaning copper vessels with lemon, and this is the reason why she does that. Let's discuss one more activity. For this activity, we require solutions of glucose, alcohol, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid. Now, fix 2 nails on a cork and place this cork in a 100 ml beaker and connect the nails to 2 terminals of 6 volt battery through a bulb and a switch as shown in this figure. You can see the figure. This is the beaker in which this is the cork. 2 nails are there which are connected with an external circuit. A bulb is there and in this beaker HCl solution is taken. After some time you will observe that the bulb starts glowing. Now repeat this experiment again with glucose and alcohol solutions. Now what do you observe? Now you will observe that the bulb does not glow in this case. It actually glows only in the case of acid and not in the case of glucose and alcohol. So what is the reason behind this? And the reason is that HCl dissociates into H ions and chloride ions, and these ions conduct electricity in the solution, and as a result the bulb glows. Why this happens? Because for flow of electricity some kind of ions are required, and these ions are produced by the acid because acid has a tendency to dissociate and give H ions. On the other hand, glucose solution, it does not dissociate into its ions, therefore it does not conduct electricity. Acids basically behave as electrolytes and therefore they dissociate into ions, and this property of acids results in their conduction of electricity and the bulb glows in this experiment. From this experiment we can conclude that all acids, they contain hydrogen ions essentially, but Not all compounds containing hydrogen are acids, and that is why though alcohol and glucose do contain hydrogen, but they cannot be categorized as acids, right? So after so much of discussion, we can conclude that H ions are responsible for most of the properties of acids. We know acids behave as electrolytes, so in aqueous solutions they dissociate into their ions, and these ions, especially the H ions, they are responsible for most of the acidic properties, right? With this we come to the end of the first part of chapter 2. Rest of the topics I will take up in the next video in the part 2.